All right. Hello, welcome to Convict Inc. I'm your host, Robert Rosso. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please do so. If you like this video, please share it with please press like and share it with your family, friends, neighbors, enemies, etc. I'm having a little bit of problems with words today for some reason. I am. Had it on the phone. Anyway, Kenny Lassiter, former brother of mine. Part of the reason, was the shot caller for the Dirty White Boys when I joined. Arguably my sponsor, and I'll get to that. In January 27th, 2023, gunned down in Melbourne, Florida. And I'll get to the reasons why in just a second. Let me back up. Kenny Lassiter died when he was 59, so he was born around 1965. Troubled kid, for sure, smoked marijuana, drank, ended up with the grandparents, and the grandpa, I believe it was the grandpa that was a fisherman, taught Kenny the trade. He was a crab fisherman for all intents and purposes. Loved the sea, loved the ocean, loved Florida, proud to be from Florida. Florida cracker is what he would tell everybody he was. I believe right after his teens, he was fishing for different boats, and he got a captain that cracked on him about smuggling drugs. And what it was at the time was there's a lot of cocaine down in Florida, but it was the marijuana operations. So what would happen is there's two different things. They'd go to Jamaica, boats would come off Jamaica and they'd pick it up, or coming across the Atlantic, barges would come from different countries and just push bales out overseas. You guys ever hear about all the marijuana and the cocaine floating around down in Florida? That's why. People would think speedboats or different reasons why these bales were floating, but a lot of them where they were pushed off and the guys that were grabbing the bales couldn't grab all of them. That's how it was explained to me anyway. So Kenny gets in, he's full on in the drug trade. He's fishing too, but they're doing smuggling. And I forgot what happened, but they did a big move in Jamaica. And he said that they quit. Now, on the mainland, he was involved in selling cocaine. I don't remember a lot about smuggling cocaine. He didn't talk about that much, a few times, but for sure he had the cocaine plug. And he was with a girl named Tetta, I'll never forget because he talked about her so much. And him and Tetta were together until the night of his arrest. And what happens here is they did a big move, and like all criminals, they're gonna do one last one or whatever. Well, they did their last one. He's sitting at a bar. He said he was well off on some money, is what he said. And guy comes up to him, and it's a former captain that he knows, and he said, look, I got 3 boats I need to go out tonight, and it's this guy's involved in crime, and pick up some dope. So Kenny ended up being the captain of this boat. Goes out however far out, they grab all the bales, and as soon as they turn around and head back, boom, spotlight. It was all set up. And the guy that set him up was that captain who got busted, and he was rolling over on other people. I forgot how many co-defendants and all. When they got busted, I mean, the actual boat was loaded down. Like, it was so loaded down with marijuana. When the Coast Guards put the light on him, Kenny just grabbed some weed, rolled a joint, and just started smoking it. That's how he told the story anyway. Went to trial, blue trial. The only person that didn't tell on the case was him. And in 1987, he ends up with 30 years. Now, that was under the old law. There's a divide. Under the old law, 30 wouldn't be parolable, but he was under the old law, or the old new law, it's called, which was a parolable offense. Now, Kenny, it starts off, I believe, in Talladega. It's the prison he started off, which is an FCI. From there, he graduated, went up custody, and ended up at USP Atlanta, where he met members of the Dirty White Boys. The Dirty White Boys, federal prison gang. Started about 1985. There's conflicting stories on where it started. Some say 3 Rivers. Some say El Reno, Oklahoma. Whatever the case, and they'll be in my comment section for sure. People will be talking that are more in the know on the beginning. Guys predominantly from Texas. Some of them came out of state custody, meaning the feds contracted them from the state prison. I know that some of those guys ended up in El Reno. A lot of them were from the Dallas area, originally called the Dallas White Boys. And then from there went to the Dirty White Boys, from my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong. So what happens is the Dirty White Boys were nothing but a prison softball team in the beginning. They then evolved into a gang. And what happened is somebody drew up a gang insignia, is that the right word? Insignia. Gang patch, which is prison bars, prison bricks, and a guard tower with the outlined in the state where you're from. So Texas, most of them. And then the words Dirty White Boys over it. Kenny ends up meeting some of these Dirty White Boys, and I don't know if he got his patch there or prospected there, but he was in Atlanta, I want to say from 92 to about 95. Then he went to Terre Haute. And again, there'll be a little bit of these dates off, so correct me if you guys know, if you guys are in the know. I'm going by stories that I remember that he told, and we spent a lot of time together in the cell. From USP Atlanta, where he did put some work in for sure. He hit somebody in the head with the bar, I know that. He ends up at USP Terre Haute. He stays there for a while. In 1997, goes to USP Leavenworth, where 1 year later I meet him. When I met Kenny, he was not the shot caller of the Dirty White Boys. A guy named Robert Wolf was. Before that, it was Jersey, I believe. And I met Kenny through a friend of mine by the name of Dusty. So I started running around with these guys. I was not involved in gang activity for the first year or really hanging out tough with these guys. But what would happen is I would go to the hole for a dirty urine. And while I'm in the hole, I spent my whole time with Dusty. And through Dusty, because we spent time together in the hole, I got closer with the Dirty White Boys. And then ultimately I went back to the hole and was with Kenny. And we ended up spending months together. I think 6 months at one time in the hole together. There we got really close, and he was really on me to join the Dirty White Boys. And one of the things he said, and I've said it before, is he said that there's too many soldiers and not enough leaders, not enough guys with brains. And he thought that with the life sentence, and I wasn't small, that I would do good for the gang. Never in my life did I want to join a gang. Never in my life did I ever think I would join a gang. Nevertheless, what ends up happening is Kenny is on me, and one night we all end up in the shoe together and got drunk. And Kenny called us the shot on this, where we all held our trays. The incident happened, it was actually the day after the death penalty of Timothy McVeigh, when Timothy McVeigh was executed. And what happened was, we were drunk, and there were some guys that were bringing dope over to the hole, and we were trying to get the guys with the dope on our range, and they were having problems. And Kenny was adamant that, to move these guys and blah blah blah. Well, long story short, they did move 2 guys. They catered to him because he had some juice, and he wanted a 3rd guy moved over who had the drugs, and they wouldn't move him. And we all held our lunch trays. We're all drunk. We started drinking in the morning. And Kenny got the lieutenant up there. His name is Simmons or Sims. And they had some words, and they were trying to negotiate. And Kenny said something about he wanted a pack of tobacco. He wanted a carton of tobacco for all of us, and then all hell broke loose. Anyway, they had what's called the Special Operation Resort Task Force or whatever. It's a SORT team. That's not the correct name, but it's close. It's the SORT team, and they rolled the SORT team on us. We all got fucked up, and Kenny was responsible. That was a shot that he called. It's a shot caller. Anyway, Kenny Lassiter was really, really funny. Read the USA Today. He was a master at the crossword puzzles. Can do the USA Today. I'm sorry. USA Today was nothing to him. He liked the New York Times crossword puzzle. Avid reader. Addict, alcoholic first, followed by heroin. Heroin, like a lot of us, became his existence. What ends up happening with Kenny is he goes up for parole, and surprisingly to even him, because he had a lot of assaults and he was in a gang and they brought it all up, they granted him parole in 18 months. So he had an 18-month set off. Not that he would see the parole board again, that he'd get out in 18 months. Well, during that time, he was involved in an incident where there's 3 guys in a cell. They were all doing heroin, shooting up. Cop comes in, tries to get in. Cop pushes a guy. One guy chucks the cop so the other guy can flush the stuff. And all 3 in that cell get caught with possessing narcotics because the cop saw the outfit and the drugs, and assault on an officer. Kenny was one of them. That messed up his parole. Goes up parole again. They grant it to him again, in a year this time. An identical incident happens where 3 people in a cell, shooting up, cop comes in, chuck the cop to block him so they can throw it away. Kenny again goes back to the hole. And again, they grant him parole. This time, what ends up happening is we were in the hole together, him and I, and we were having a lot of issues, gang fights internally. There was a lot of stuff going on. The car, or the gang, the Dirty White Boys, was split. By the way, right after that incident where we were in the SORT team is when I joined. And there's a whole video about how I became a member of the Dirty White Boys, okay? Kenny was the reason behind it. We're in the shoe together, and we used to have handcuff keys. Handcuff keys could be a new thing from the real thing to a slip. So you ever seen a pin that clicks onto your shirt, the little metal piece? If you get it and you flatten it out, you can use those for handcuff keys. Matter of fact, that was part of being a gang member, is we would steal handcuffs and practice on how fast to get unlocked. And that's because of enemies. Well, Kenny, he was in the hole for the assault on the officer and the drug thing. And staff was short, and the AW, oh, Jesus Christ. It was the AW that brought him to DHO that day. When he took him out of the cell, he grabbed his wrist, and Kenny accidentally dropped that slip, which was considered a handcuff key. So the AW thinks that Kenny was going to slip the cuff to assault him. So what they did was they put an ADX and Marion referral on him. That's a Supermax, or the level 6 is what they call it. You guys have all heard about the Aryan Brotherhood and all that being in Marion or ADX or John Gotti and all this. That's what they ended. Ultimately, they sent Kenny to Marion. Now, at Marion, he hooks up with another brother named Tank, who I met briefly. I believe they got into it with the ABs there. I know they got into it one time in a rec cage with some ABs and beat one up. Don't know a lot about what happened after that. But Kenny gets out on parole while he's at Marion. His mom had money. The family had money. I don't know if she married money or what the deal was, but the mom had money, according to Kenny, I want to say. And by all indications, you can see photos and stuff that were sent. I think they're well off. The mom, from what I understand, ultimately hooks Kenny up with the girl that she's working with, who I learned from one of Kenny's friends who I did time with, that the lady lived, I think, in Baltimore or Baltimore Harbor. Now, for people that might know Kenny Lassiter, understand that this is all, I did talk to Kenny when I was in Butner, I think it was 2010 one time. So everything I say, there might be some gaps in here, and you guys can fill it in the comment sections as you want. So I just want to kind of give the whole thing about him. So by all indications, so he gets out. There was a hurricane right before he got out, so there's a lot of work. He did, also does carpentry, by the way, or did. And by all indications, dude's doing phenomenal. Drinking, and by his own words when he talked to me, too much. Drinking too much. But I also, like I said, I ran into a guy who was like Kenny's closest friend growing up, and told me that Kenny was a square except for he drank. That means he didn't use hard drugs anymore, is what he said. As a matter of fact, he was pissed off at Kenny because Kenny had told the guy's girlfriend about him using heroin or something. And he was really upset with Kenny at the time when I was doing time with him about it. So my point being is, by all indications, this dude's doing great. As far as crime, that's like out of the question. And again, he was a marijuana guy that got caught up in marijuana, got into the cocaine trade for a short period of time, but for all intents and purposes, really, statistically, I don't even think he was supposed to be there. again, he was troubled. I know he lived with his grandpa for a while, but I believe that they were all kind of well off. I believe, okay? But in his mannerism, the way he's talked and spoke and stuff, like Dusty or myself, we all had the same kind of mannerism, I guess one would say. That would be fairly accurate. And he was educated. As a matter of fact, he was. I'm a high school dropout with a barely passing a GED. He was an avid reader. I was an avid, but Kenny's a smart guy. Anyway, he was. What ends up happening, I have no idea. The last I heard, he was living with the girl from Baltimore. They were dating. She had like a boat in the yard in the Baltimore Harbor, something like that. Just doing phenomenal. And here the other day, I talked to one of my old friends, brothers, Dusty, and he brought up Kenny. And I did some research on it, and here's what happens. In Melbourne, right off the intercoastal waterway, or whatever you guys call it down in Florida, Melbourne Beach, Kenny was dealing drugs for a while. The thumbnail, I think this is a mugshot from some other arrest. I'm not sure. But for 2 years, he was living in a house, real nice house, nice area, and selling, looked like methamphetamine and fentanyl. So on January 27th, the Broward County, I guess it is, I think it's Broward, whatever is in Melbourne, executes a search warrant with a SWAT team. Why they brought a SWAT team, I don't know. Maybe they had information that this would happen. But January 27th, they roll up to do have a warrant to search the home, and Kenny came out with a gun, saw the police, and fired on him. And I'm going to tell you, it's really weird. I've know a lot of people that are hardcore criminals, and I can picture which ones that I think would do something like this. I never anticipated Kenny Lassiter to do this, and I understand he was a gang member in prison, even a gang leader for a short period of time. But to have this in him, I can only say it's got to be a mixture of meth or something. I can understand he might not have wanted to go back at 59. He knew he'd be washed up, so there's probably that. But I was really shocked, and it just made me really sad, because the picture you see, I see addiction. I do. And it's sad. And it's sad that his life ended this way. I saw the comment section in some of the news reports, and the neighbors were really happy, saying another scumbag took an out, going on and on. And I get it, and I understand it. I just wish you guys could have known the Kenny I know, even being in prison in the situation where us gang members. It's hard for a normal people to understand. Never would I have thought that. And it's sad. It all should be a lesson to what can happen to people through addiction. And on that note, I just want to say, R.I.P., brother. Take care. Love you, Kenny.